exciting things happened this week. And first of all, I want to introduce you to somebody very special. She's not actually here with us, but she will be soon. Her name is Berlin Elizabeth Schultz. Is Grandma here? There he is in the back. Are you awake?
I'm good. I am here.
Vanessa texted me yesterday and she goes, this baby isn't sleeping at night. And I'm like, oh, I know, aren't they precious? I know. What do I do? Story of all time, I do not know. Anyway, we are so happy to meet her for real. And so send him a note, send him a text, not at 2 in the morning, so hopefully she will find sleep sometime, okay? So, but let him know how happy you are to welcome this new bundle of joy. The other thing that is so exciting is this picture right here. That is the softball team that went to the Nazarene Nationals. And I don't know if you've seen this huge trophy that's right by them. They took first place. I know, and that was after they played like 5 games. They don't look half bad, do they? I know, but I have to tell you that my husband couldn't move for 4 days. Okay? So anyway, I want to congratulate them because that is really cool. And I also wanted to show you my contribution to the team because it was so great. Are you guys ready? Crosspoint! Crosspoint! It got them through some really tough times. I'm sure. So anyway, one thing I neglected to mention, I'm so sorry. As cool as all of this is, it required a lot of work. And Nathan Henderson was here days and days and all day yesterday. Steve Carlisle and Austin Berry and Andrew Schultz, and I know my husband was here for a few hours too. So please say thank you, because this is really neat. This is really premier. Right? So just say thank you, because they worked really hard on it. As cool as this is, I don't want it to distract from what our mission here is at Crosspoint. And that is to lead people to be passionate followers of Christ. Because we can do all the cool things and all the neat stuff and be very entertaining. But if we don't lead people to see Jesus Christ, then we're not doing anything. So that is our true passion. And we really like to have fun while we do it too. So anyway, we are now starting our new series. Is God, right? Is God, or Jesus Christ, God, they're all going through my head. Is God right for you? Is God right for you? Have you really found what you've been looking for?
So a couple of years ago, we had a really fun process that we needed to go buy a house. And the reason why we had to is the people who we were working for, we lived in one of their houses, and we no longer worked for them, so they weren't real happy with us still being in the house. So it was a little bit urgent that we needed to go find a house somewhat quickly. And just out of curiosity, how many of you, that's a fun process for you, searching for houses, things like that? Okay, I am not one of those people. I hate every minute of it. I just want to be done. And so Bethany's kind of doing the whole thing, and she's looking through the classifieds, she's looking online, as we drive through every single neighborhood that we could possibly, that'd be good, there's one for sale, let's do that. And so we just kind of did that whole thing. And I was on the other hand, so she set up, there was a house that she liked, so we set up an open house. I hadn't looked at any of them. And so we go to this open house, and we're walking through it, and we get done, and I'm like, well, it's not amazing, but it's in our price range, and it's clean. So I was like, well, let's do this. And our realtor was like, well, maybe we shouldn't just the first house we've ever seen put an offer on that. Let's check out another one. So a week later, we went through another open house. We walked through that, and that was even better. And so I got done with that. Okay, let's do this one. And so that's actually the house that we bought. So you can see I'm very thorough in my decision process. But so we go through the whole thing, and we had finally bought the house. And that's kind of how it worked, is we had all these different options, more so my wife and me researched these different things, until we finally came to a decision. This is what didn't happen. We didn't say, okay, we want to have a house, and our realtor came to us and said, okay, this is the only house you can buy. You can either have this one or you don't get anything. No, it doesn't work like that because we have choices. And I think that's really important, that we like choices. We like having different options and all different sorts of things. So whether it's a house, whether you're buying a car, whether it's those significant things, I know this is going to sound a little crude, but whether it's a spouse, you have choices, and you like that. And we do that for simple things as well, for things that don't matter as much. We do it for things like the food that we want to eat, the clothes that we want to wear, the movies that we want to see. We never get someone actually just coming to us and just go, okay, you have one option. This is the only option that you have. If you don't choose that, then you get nothing. Because we like those choices. Except in one area of our life, that happens over and over and over again. And it's religion. And so what happens is that we go through our lives and we've got all these choices, all these options, and then when it comes to issues of faith, when anyone wants to talk to us, they just go, okay, here's the only choice you have. Here's the only option that you have. There are no other options. And you kind of want to go, well, aren't there like lots of religions? Aren't there lots of beliefs? Aren't there lots of denominations? No. They're all wrong. You just get this one, and that's the only chance that you've got. And if you reject that, then you get nothing. And it's funny because for some reason, we accept that mentality, we accept that philosophy when it comes to faith and religion. Yet if it was in any other area of our life, we would completely reject it. That we're okay with people telling us, okay, this is what you have to believe, and just cramming it down our throats. And if we don't believe it, then you get nothing. And so this is what I want to do. I kind of want to counteract that in this series. And so this is what we're going to do. For the next 4 weeks, we are going to give you an opportunity to shop Christianity. To take an inside look as to what Christianity, as to what faith is all about, to see what's going on, to see what the different beliefs are. We're going to give you, in essence, what it's like to test drive a car. Because when you want a car, they'll often say, hey, you want to take it out for a spin, take it out for a see how it goes? And you go, yeah, I do. Before I make this big purchase, before I make this big decision, I'd like to see what's going on. And so that's what we're going to give you an opportunity to do when it comes to faith. To check out what's really going on, to check out what we really believe, to check out what it really looks like to live as a Christian, what your life is going to be like, and what eternity is all about. Now, some of you, you're hearing that, you're kind of going, well, isn't that like sacrilegious? Like, I don't think we're supposed to do that. I think we're supposed to tell people, like, this is it, this is all you got, and if you don't accept that, then you get nothing. And if we're going to have this discussion, the important thing is that the Bible needs to be our source. We believe as Christians, in Christianity, that the Bible is the source for all truth in our lives. And we actually see an example of this in the Bible. We see a leader of God's people by the name of Joshua. When the people were kind of turning, they were looking for different things and they were searching. He doesn't get up in front of them and say, you people are terrible. You know this is the only choice you have. No, he actually gets up in front of them and he says this. I think this is brilliant. He says, if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day who you will serve. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Do you see that? He says, choose for yourselves who you will serve. Make the choice. Go ahead and figure it out if you need to figure it out. But that's the important thing, is that you make the choice. And so that's what I'm hoping the next 4 weeks are going to be about for you. You're going to get an inside look. You're going to see, okay, exactly what is this faith all about? What does it look like to follow Jesus? What does it mean if I call myself a Christian? What all goes into that? And then I'm going to leave you with a choice. And I want you to know, just leading up to it, there's going to be no pressure going into it. Like, there will never be like a paper that you have to fill out in a box that you're going to check. No one's going to check you at the door and be like, well, did you decide? What did you decide? And like that's not going to happen. We're just going to leave it up to you. I'm just going to lay it out as simply as I can. This is what faith looks like. And then I'm going to leave it to you. Because it's your choice. It's your choice to make. Now, I want to address 2 groups just real quickly before we get into this. If you are here today and you would consider yourself, whatever label you have, but you would consider yourself an outsider. Whether you would say, like, I'm a seeker, I'm a searcher, I'm just checking stuff out, I just have some questions that I want to get answered, whatever that is, or if you just go, I just reject labels altogether, I don't like labels, like, whatever you are, you would just say, I'm not, whatever it means to be a Christian, whatever it means to follow Christ, I'm not there yet. I want you to know, there is going to be a point in time in this series where you're going to feel tense. That there's going to be some things that maybe are said by me, or maybe are said through the songs that we sing, that you're just going to go, oh, I don't really agree with that. I don't necessarily believe that. And the tendency that you're going to have when you stumble across something that you don't necessarily agree with is to walk away and to not take your search any further. But I want to leave you with a quote by Aristotle that I think is brilliant. He says this: "It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it." And I just think that's brilliant. He said, for people who are intelligent, for people who are educated, everything they hear, everything that they play through their brain, they don't have to necessarily wholeheartedly agree with to think it through. Which is, I think, where a lot of us get stuck. As soon as we hear something that just kind of rubs us the wrong way, we just want to leave the conversation. And I just want to encourage you, stay in it. It's the mark of an educated mind to entertain a thought, and that's what I want you to do. I want you to entertain the thought of what it would look like to follow Jesus for the rest of your life. And so that's for those who are searching, who are kind of looking in. Now, for those of you who you're here and you're going, okay, I'm in. Like, whatever we call it, Christian, follower of Christ, disciple, whatever label we give, that's me. I'm in. I've been in for a long time. I've made that decision. It would be really easy to think that this series has nothing for me. It's kind of like, well, I've already decided, so what am I going to get out of it? And I think this is really important for you. Because I believe a lot of us, as we grew up, we were fed a very simplistic faith. And this is what has happened, is that as we were kind of maturing and as we were learning these different things, we had very complex, difficult questions that we wanted answered. And what happens is that normally in church, we don't like questions. We believe when people ask questions, that's effective. And so what happens is we're fed these very simplistic, overly simplistic answers to kind of pacify us. And then we're told, don't ask this question. And people we go, well, why does this happen? Why does this happen? Well, why did this occur? Why do we believe this? And the answer that some people give us is, well, you just need to have faith. Well, you just need to have faith. And the response that I've always felt is, well, I have faith. I'm just searching there. I'm just asking these things. And so we're often told, you know what you need to be a Christian is you need answers. And I don't believe that's the case. I believe we find God not in the answers, but in the questions. That it's in asking difficult, hard, complex questions that, I'll be very honest with you, sometimes do not have an answer. They do not have an answer. I believe that's where we find God. And I believe that's where the search for faith really begins and where it grows. And so what we're going to do in the series over the next 4 weeks, we're going to ask some hard questions. We're going to ask basically 3 questions over the next 3 weeks. The first question we're going to ask is about our desires. And it's the fact that, you know what, if God created us, why do I desire some of the things that I do? Why do I just internally, with nothing feeding it, why do I naturally want to do these things, and yet the Bible tells me I can't? Like, if God created me, why do I continually search for these things and want these different things in my life, and yet I'm constantly told that I can't have that, and I can't pursue those things, that it's wrong? Like, but what is that about? In the third week of the series, we're going to look at the issue of virtue, or character. And this is just kind of the greatest disconnect in our face sometimes that actually makes me laugh. That what we're often told is we're told salvation. The salvation that Jesus offers is free. The grace that God gives is a free gift. But then you need to do this and this and this and this, and you can't do these things. It doesn't sound very free, does it? I've always laughed with a friend of mine in the youth group growing up. We would go to these camps and things like that, and the speaker would always get up there at the end, and he would say, like, God asks nothing from you. It's completely free. That's what makes it such a good gift. And they would say, the thing that he's not telling anyone is as soon as you accept that free gift, God asks for your whole life. Like, that's the great bait and switch. Like, it's free. Okay, what do I need to do? Give him everything. It doesn't sound very free. And so where's the tension? How does that make sense in terms of the fact that grace is free, but we're expected, as soon as you're a Christian, to do these things and to not do these things? And then the last week of the series, I'm very excited about this. We're going to talk about the issue of eternity. Because the Bible over and over again emphasizes eternity, emphasizes heaven, and emphasizes hell. Here you go. So why is eternity so important? And how could a loving God, who claims he loves everyone, send people to hell? Like, if God really loved everyone, and if eternity was so important, wouldn't there just be a heaven? And wouldn't hell just be a concept or an idea that no one actually goes to? And so that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at these three questions, which I think as we ask these questions, and as we have these discussions, we're going to find more and more about our faith than we ever have. And so I'm very excited about that. But before we get to these questions, and before we really begin our study and our conversation of is God right for you, there's one thing that we have to nail down today. And that is, I want to talk about what God thinks of you. Now, this is very important because the way that other people think about us, when we know what other people think about us, it greatly affects what we think about them. So, like, if someone came up to you and like, so, hey, what do you think of Bill? And your response may be, well, honestly, I kind of think Bill's a jerk. Like, I mean, he seems all about himself. No offense, this is not about you. If your name is actually Bill, that's your name, just to be clear. He's all about himself. He's kind of arrogant. I don't really like him. And the response is, well, Bill really likes you. Or something. Well, he's not all that bad. I mean, if he likes me, he can't all be. Yeah, he's all right. I mean, he's got something about him. When we find out what someone else thinks about us, if they like us, our tendency is to like them back. If we find out someone hates us, like, well, Bill hates you. Well, I never liked him to begin with. I mean, that's our response. And this is very important when it comes to faith. Because a lot of us have believed for our entire lives that God is against us. That God is out to get us. That whether it's because of how we grew up, or things that we've done, or some things that have happened to us, and we're often told stuff like this: if you do this, God doesn't like you. God doesn't like this, so if you do that, then God is against you. And for many of us, we have grown up our entire lives believing that God is out to get us. And I want to show you that just the opposite is true. And this is how we know. Knowing what God thinks, is kind of confusing. And I'll be the first to admit that as you read the Bible, knowing exactly what is going on with God at any moment, it's a little confusing to figure out. But what God has done throughout the Bible is He has given us ways that we can know Him. And the way He's done that is He has given Himself, essentially, nicknames or metaphors. And so He has given God these different things. Hey, you may not know this, but I want you to call me this. I want you to call me this. You see, when we give people nicknames, what we're doing is we're pulling out one characteristic or one personality trait that we want them to be known by. And so you may have had a nickname growing up. You may have a nickname now. And that's how people know you, by that one thing. One of my favorite moments of the softball tournament was Rabbit, Ryan Littleton, got a hit, and we pinch ran for him. And so the umpire's standing there, and he was very confused because his response was, "You're pinch running for a guy named Rabbit?" To which my response was, "I believe he got that nickname a long time." But you can see in that essence of that if his name is Rabbit, then shouldn't that make sense? Because when that one characteristic is pulled out, we go, this is how they should be known by. There's a great episode of Seinfeld. I don't know how many of you are Seinfeld fans, but I am through and through. Where George, in his company that he's working for, the boss keeps giving everyone nicknames. And so he's lobbying, he's positioning himself to get the nickname T-Bone. Because he thinks if he has the nickname T-Bone, then everyone will like him. Let's take a look at what happens.
Mary, I will have a chef salad. Turkey sandwich. T-bone steak. For lunch. Well, I am just a T-bone guy. I love that T-bone. In fact, you might as well call me. It sounds good. I'll have one too. What? Would you never have a T-bone? I love them. Well, then we should call you T-bone. No, we shouldn't. T-bone. 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 It's T-bone. The thing is, I'm supposed to be T-bone. You're not T-bone. You're a perfect George. What? Now you listen to me. Look at George. T-bone. Stop crying. Stop crying. And I should have said that about your wife. Please accept my apologies. Okay, everybody, I have an announcement to make. From now on, I will be known as Coco the Monkey.
I'm excited. So here you can see the importance of that, though. That when someone has a nickname, when you give them that name, it amplifies one aspect of their character. And so throughout the Bible, what we see is that God gives himself nicknames over and over again. He gives us these metaphors that we can know him. And some of you see there on the list: Almighty, beginning, the end, Creator, Shepherd. And that is less than 10% of the names that God gives us throughout the Bible. That it's like people will be in a certain spot and he goes, I want you to know this about me. And they'll be in a difficult spot and he'll say, I want you to know that I'm your shepherd. And other times they'll be in battle and he said, I want you to know that I am your conqueror. And sometimes the nicknames, they kind of go against each other. So how can God be peace, maker, and conqueror? How can he be these two different things? And so to clarify all the confusion, what Jesus does, the Son of God, how we know God, is he says, there is one thing that I want you to remember. Out of all the names that I've given myself, out of all the names that you've called me, out of all the ways that you know me through things that I've done, there is one way that when you think of me, when you think of God, there is one thing that I want to come to your mind before anything else. And what happens is he's sitting in a room with his closest followers, and they're about to partake of this meal. And as they're just eating, they're having this meal, they're having dinner together, he basically stops the meal and he does this. And I want to show you what he does. It's incredible. It says, after taking the cup, he gave thanks and said, take this and divide it among you. For I tell you, I will not drink again of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of God comes. And he took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, this is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Now, I'm not going to get into all of what that meant in terms of his crucifixion, his trial, everything that was about to happen, and the meaning of the actual meal that they were taking. I just want to focus on the metaphor that he gives us. That in that moment, Jesus says, hey, when you remember me, he says, do this in remembrance of me. And it's important to note that they are eating a meal. He does something significant within that meal, but they are having dinner. He is having dinner with his friends, something that you do often. He says, when you think of me, I want you to think of bread and drink. Out of everything in the world that could come to your mind, when you hear the word God, or when you hear the name Jesus, out of everything that could possibly come up, thunderbolts and lightning, everything else that we usually think of, he says, the first thing that I want to be on your mind is bread and drink. And we look at that and think, oh, that seems a little simple. I mean, I like food. Don't get me wrong. But when I think of Jesus, when I think of God, I'm supposed to think of food, bread, and drink. And this is what I believe he was saying. You see, when you eat, actually even before you eat, your body has begun processing the food that you're about to eat. When you inhale the aroma of the food, what happens is your mouth starts to salivate, because it is already beginning to break down the food. Now, this is a process that we usually don't over-romanticize. It's actually kind of gross when we think about it. But it's important to understand what's happening when you eat. You see, your body, through a process of different mechanical and chemical things, begins breaking down that food into something very significant. So as you chew your food, mechanically you are breaking it down. As the food passes through your esophagus and down into your stomach, different muscles are contracting and pulling, breaking the food down into smaller and smaller pieces. And as the food begins moving through your stomach and down through your body, what happens is it releases different enzymes to break the food down even further, so that as it passes through your body can pull out the sugars and the amino acids and the nutrients and the minerals and put them where they need to go. And so these specialized cells will then come in that will take the food, take the different nutrients, and put them into your bloodstream so it can pass through your body to go exactly where it needs to go, because your body knows where that needs to happen. You see, as the food gets broken down, it gets broken down into two things: replacement tissue and energy. And so every time you eat, what's happening is your body is telling your entire digestive process, this is replacement tissue that we need to keep our body alive and energy. This is important. What's happening is when you eat, your body is telling, your mind is telling your body that this is what keeps it alive. If you didn't have the energy or the replacement tissue, you couldn't stay alive. And so Jesus says, when you think of me, I want you to think of life. Before you think of anything else, I want you to think of bread and drink. Because without these, you would not have life. Now there's a problem. It's that when you eat, you're going to get hungry again. But when you drink, you're going to get thirsty again. Because these are temporary solutions to problems that you're going to have the rest of your life. That's what food is. It's a temporary solution. And then we get all these incredible passages in the Bible. Like, at one point in time, Jesus is tempted. And he's tempted with a loaf of bread because he's hungry. And his response to being tempted is, man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. He's saying, this bread that you're offering will sustain me, will nourish me, will give me life for a small period of time. But God has something that will nourish me forever. We see an instance where he encounters a lady at the well, and she's about to draw water. And he says, if you knew who I was, if you knew who I really am, then you would ask me for the living water that would never run dry. And we see this incredible encounter where they're at a wedding. And what has happened, they're at this wedding and the wine has run out. And so they come to say, hey, we need your help. The wine has run out. And so what he does is he tells them to take these large stone basins, to fill them with water, and take them to the guy who was organizing and running the wedding. And so they take him to this guy, and the water is turned into wine. But not just any wine. Because a guest comes up later on, and he says this to the guy who organized the wedding. He says, everyone else serves the best wine first, and then pulls out the cheap stuff once everyone is plastered and wouldn't know the difference. That's a loose translation, just to be clear. He says, but you have saved the best for last. And that's what Jesus is telling us. He's saying, when you think of me, I want you to think of that which gives you life. But not just a temporary solution, an eternal solution. And I want you to know, I'm saving the best for last. And so before you can answer the question, is God right for you? There's one thing you must know. And that is the fact that God is for you. Before you can ever begin the search of, is God right for me? Is this belief? Is this life of following Jesus? Is being a Christian? Is that what I want? Is that what's true? You must know that God is for you. He is acting on your behalf. He is in your corner. He is rooting you on. And he is doing everything that he possibly can for you to find the life that you have so desperately looked for. And I know at different points in times in our life, when someone gets sick or something bad happens, or different things don't go as we planned, it's easy to sink back into the corner and be like, well, God's just out to get me. That's what he's doing. God's always been against me. That's how my whole life has gone, is God is out to get me. And I want you to know exactly the opposite is true. That he is doing everything he can. He is moving events. He is bringing people into your life. He is sometimes moving people out of your life for you to turn to him. Because He is the only life. In Him, following Him, is the only life that is not temporary, but it's eternal. So I want you to know, I wish you luck. I want you to know that I'm praying for you. No matter where you are on your search of finding out if God is right for you. But I want you to know, every single time you think of God, He says the first thing you should think of is love. Because I am for you. Let me pray for you. Father, I want to pray for each person here on their search. That whatever it is that they're looking for, whatever it is that they've sought out, whether this is their first time in church or whether they've been in church their entire life, Father, I hope that they'll be honest with themselves. I hope as things come up that may be a little confusing, maybe a little disturbing, may not be what they thought of before, that they wouldn't turn and run, that they wouldn't turn and hide. But Lord, most of all, I want them to know that you are acting on our behalf. That even when it doesn't seem like it, even when it doesn't feel like it, you have a plan that is greater than each and every one of us. And that plan, that desire is for us to find you. And so, Father, that's my prayer. No matter where we are, no matter what we've struggled with, no matter what we've dealt with in the past, help us to find you. Help us to know deep down you are for us. And it's in your name we pray.
Isn't that great? God, you're for me. No matter what, no matter the place that I'm in my life, my fear, my insecurity, my doubt, my questions. No matter what, God, what I'm going through, what I feel, you're on my side. You are for me. Isn't that such a great comfort? I love that. We have a challenge for you that we would like for you to take the next 4 weeks. Just the next 4 weeks, no matter where you are right now in your thought process. But we want you to act like a Christian for 4 weeks. What does that mean? Where do I start, right? Those are some of the questions. Let's look at in the New Testament when somebody came up to Jesus and they said, he said, follow me. And they were like, well, Christ, what does that look like? What does that look like? And his response to them was, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. So put me first. Love me. What does that look like to you? Love me. Put me first. Love me with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. The second thing he told them to do was to love your neighbor as yourself. He said, those are the 2 greatest commandments. They mean more than anything. Live like a Christian. Love me. Love others. I want you to attempt to do that in the next 4 weeks. Journal about it. Pray about it. Wherever you're comfortable doing. But for the next 4 weeks, I challenge you to live like a Christian and see how that changes you. How does that change others around you? How does that change your job, your community, your neighborhood, your life? I'd love to hear those stories. So if you've got a good one, please write it down. That's my challenge for you for the next 4 weeks. I also want to draw your attention to the connectors that are coming up here. If you have questions, if you want to go just a little deeper in an area and you're like, I want to become more involved in this, I really want to know how to go deeper in Christ, they have exactly answers to everything you need, hopefully. Sorry. Sometimes things are hard to get out. We have different classes that are available, and they have all those available there. I also want to announce tonight that we are starting Kids Stuff for this year, and it is going to be amazing. It's going to have a whole new look. It's going to have a whole new feel. So if you have a child, if your neighbor has a child, if your friend has a child, you will not want to miss this. It is a family experience for you to come and just worship and have fun and learn more about Christ. So we invite you tonight at 6 o'clock for Kids Stuff, and there's a pre-show at 5:45, so we don't want you to miss it. I'm going to be praying for all of you this week, just as a group bundle, because God knows who you are, as you begin this challenge. And I want you to have a fabulous week, and we hope to see you next week.